Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I was reading through the comments on the video that I did the other day called Am I an Alcoholic? And thank you so much for the comments. I really appreciate it. And I received a comment from somebody that said that they would love to see me do a video for the people that love and live with an addict or an alcoholic. And so I thought, well, you know, this is actually a question that I get asked a lot in my personal life. You know, friends of mine will call me up and they'll say, can I talk to you for just a little bit? And I'll say, yeah, sure. And they'll say, you know, like, my sister's going through this, or, you know, my son is going through this, or my spouse is going through this, and I don't really know what to do, and what do you suggest, and what do you think? So, and having lived, you know, as I was growing up with an active alcoholic, my mother, who, if you don't know my story, I got sober December 17th of 1994. My mother's sobriety date was June 2nd of 1995. So before she passed away, she was a month shy of 13 years sober. So we got to live almost 13 years together in sobriety and speak the language of sobriety together. And, you know, it's interesting because we call addiction a family disease, but to be able to share recovery with a family member as well is just like so cool. And I have known so many families that when a family member gets sober, you know, the other members go to AlAnon, or they go to AlAnon, or they go to sister programs, or they get involved in family counseling, and the whole family gets sober together, which I just think is phenomenal, because to be able to share all of that is just a really, really cool thing, you know? And so anyway, I actually had heard this story like years ago about these people, and they had like, they had bought this land, and they had called it something that was like related to like sobriety, and they had like built a house for their daughter and her husband. It's like it was like this whole area that was all just about sobriety, and I just loved that. I thought that that was so cool, you know? So anyway, I thought that it was a really, really good question, and actually very pertinent, because there is a friend of mine that has reached out to me recently that has asked for help in regards to a family member. And so I was been thinking a lot about my personal experiences with that, you know, and I know like when I was growing up, it was difficult because as a child in a situation like that, you feel very powerless. I can remember, you know, at times like being so angry that I would like pour all of my mother's alcohol out. I can also remember, you know, being at my dad's house and calling my mom on the phone. And, you know, she would answer the phone and she was obviously inebriated. And then the next day she would like apologize like profusely for it and be like, I'm so sorry that you had to hear mom that way and whatever. And, you know, one of the things that I think is important, and I've shared this on my vlog, is that when I talk about like my mother's addiction and our addiction together and our recovery, you know, it's a strength that I see as having a relationship with my mother in recovery. And I think it's a really cool thing, you know, that I was able to share that with her. And she thought that that was a really cool thing, you know, and she'd say to people, you know, like, my son and I are sober together and whatever. And so we both thought that it was like this really cool thing. But, you know, like it was a difficult thing as a kid because the feeling and the word that I would use was absolute powerlessness. I felt powerlessness over this whole situation. What I know today, you know, when I've had friends of mine in similar situations is, I don't believe that it's necessarily an age thing. Like, I don't think that you have to be a kid growing up in this situation to feel powerless. I think you can be a spouse and have your spouse be exactly the same age as you or older and feel powerless. I think it could be a child and you feel powerless over their choices, you know? I think that it can be a sibling, or it can be a coworker, or it can be a friend, and you don't know what to say and you don't know what to do. And you know, I get so many questions from people, and people will reach out to me and they'll say, you know, like, you know, my dad is like trying to get sober. Like, what should I do to help him? Like, how can I show my support? You know, I just got a message like this the other day. Like, my dad is like trying to stay sober and he doesn't really want any support from anybody. What should I do? And I think, you know, the thing is that there are several factors, when you talk about it being a family disease and then also a family in recovery or the friend circle and things like that, right? Like the person, the addict, the alcoholic definitely has a right to set boundaries and limits and say that I don't want other people like involved in this. Like I want to do this on my own. I think it makes it more difficult, but I understand, like you've hurt people for so long that you kind of want to do this thing on your own. Like I get that, But then it leaves the family members wanting to just be loving and supportive and kind, and they don't know how to do that. The first thing I always say to people, whether the addict or alcoholic is involved in a 12-step program or not, is I always send them to the sister program, which is AlAnon. And there's NARAnon for Narcotics Anonymous. And AlAnon is a 12-step program for friends and family members of alcoholics and addicts, and well, specifically alcoholics. But and it's just it's called a family program, and it's about, and you work steps on for yourself. Like the misconception is that people go to AlAnon and that they're going to be told how to fix the alcoholic or how they're going to fix the addict, and that is not what AlAnon is about at all. And I'm not involved in AlAnon, but I have gone to AlAnon meetings and I have spoken and shared my story at AlAnon meetings when I've been asked. But AlAnon is about, you get a sponsor and you work steps and you work on yourself and how you are codependent or how you relate in relation to people that are alcoholics and addicts, And there are many people that are in AlAnon and have been active in AlAnon for 20, 30 years that the alcoholic in their life has long since passed away or, is no longer in their life because they broke up with them 20 years ago or got divorced or went their separate ways and that person is no longer in their life. But AlAnon is about how do we react to these people in our lives? So that's typically always the first thing that I tell people is please try and check out AlAnon. And I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she's been regularly going to this one meeting, a meeting that I spoke at, and I've been trying to like connect her with some people and things like that. And the first time she went, she said, I'm not really sure what I think. Like, this is new for me and it's very scary and it's very emotional. And so then I said, just keep going. Like, and she said, well, they told us, like, try it so many times and then like, whatever. And that's kind of what we say, in 12-step programs too, is like, try 90 meetings in 90 days. And if you don't like it, that we will, happily, refund your misery. And so that's what I say to people in sobriety, or people that are family members, first of all, is try a 12-step program. Any town that you live in internationally will have a AlAnon group somewhere close to you. I mean, you may have to drive 45 minutes to get to it, but you will have an AlAnon group at least once a week that is close to you. And all you have to do is call them up and say, hey, like I'm wanting to attend this AlAnon group. What do I do? And they'll just say, show up and somebody there will meet you and greet you and, tell you what to do. And that's how it goes, right? The other thing that I would do is I would find somebody professionally to talk to, whether that be a therapist, a counselor, a life coach, or whatnot, but somebody specifically that is knowledgeable, or somebody that is specifically knowledgeable with addiction and understands addiction as a family disease and how it affects other, people. Because this is the one thing that I don't think that we talk about enough is like, if you have, let's say in a family circle, like this is what we call like the family cycle kind of, but like if you have like, Sally Joe and she's the alcoholic, and then you have mom over here and dad over here and mom's the peacemaker and dad's the disciplinarian and Sally Joe is over here and then her sister Billy Joe is, the family hero. We always have like these roles that we play, right? The family hero and the disciplinarian and the peacemaker and whatever. And let's say all of a sudden, like people are like trying to get healthy and we're going to family counseling and we're trying to repair those roles. But one of those roles, like somebody goes back out and they like, let's just say if the family hero starts acting out, well, that's going to put all of those other roles like out of kilter, right? And so people aren't going to know what to do. And so it's like everybody's going to start acting out again, and then the family cycle is going to go crazy. So we all have to get healthy together. Families have to heal together, right? We have to talk about this. And I think, it's really important. I also got, so that would be the second thing that I would, suggest. And then I think the third thing that I would suggest is just to let the alcoholic or the addict in your life know, if this is a person that's getting sober, to say, I just want you to know that I love you and I care about you, and I'm here to help. And if they don't want it, they don't want it. And ask them, are there ways that I can help? And if they say no, get the F out of my life, then, you respect that to some degree, right? And hope that maybe they come down the road. Now, if you're talking about a situation where somebody is actively using and you're living with them at home, then I think that's the time for you to seek out some professional help and learn how to set boundaries and limits. And that would also be a really great time to attend, AlAnon and learn how other people have gone through that as well and what they did in those situations, For me, what I had to do when I got sober, because it was protecting my sobriety, I had to not see my mom for some time, because she was also somebody that used in my life. And when I went to my mother and I told her that, like, she had a really difficult time hearing that because she didn't see that as her role in my life, right? But I also had to get rid of other people in my life that were using. And I think it's really, really hard when it's a family member, and you're living with somebody that's an alcoholic or an addict. I know women that have been married to alcoholics that have gone in and out, in and out, in and out. And what I mean is they have periods of sobriety and then they go back out and start using again. Periods of sobriety and they go back in and out, right? They don't get divorced. It doesn't mean that you have to get divorced. You could. If you've had enough of it and you said, I can't take this anymore, then you are allowed to set that boundary and limit, It's up to you. You take what you have to take, and you decide what that's going to look like. But I've had friends of mine that attend AlAnon regularly. They have sponsors. They sponsor. They've worked a program. And, when their husband is actively drinking or using, they say, you're not going to be at home. You're not going to stay at home. And when you get sober again, then you can move back home. But until then, no, you're not going to stay at home, right? And so there's a lot of different ways to do this. Really what it's about is having the support necessary around you to, like, whether that's friends and family that you get honest with and tell them what you're going through, or whether that is, like having support professionally, or whether that's support from a 12-step program. And I would recommend all three is what I would recommend. Whether the person is actively seeking recovery or whether that person is actively using. Either way, I think that that's something that you can do for yourself. You don't have to wait for them to do something to do it, And the neighbor dog is starting to bark, so Boo Radley's probably going to go crazy. So this would probably be a perfect time for me to end this video. But thank you for bringing that topic up. I think it's a really great topic. And I appreciate all of your comments below that you gave me on the video the other day. And please leave me comments on this video as well if there are other things to do with addiction and recovery that you would like me to talk about. I love you guys. I'm sending you lots of love and hope, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.